Welcome to the S.J. Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, welcome to the S.J. Child Show. Today, I welcome Adrian Moreno. Is it Moreno? I should have asked you how to pronounce it all.
You got it. Perfect.
Perfect. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. And it's great that we get to meet in this wonderful Zoom world of meetings, because even though it's on a computer, it can be so intimate and so nice to get to know one another.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you here today.
Yeah. So I actually got introduced to you by getting my client Cam F Awesome on here. I know
just
you
had on yesterday.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know you actually recently had him on here. But I remember getting him on your show, and then you wrote back and you said that you really liked the video that I sent you. And now we're here, but what I do, so I consider myself a serial entrepreneur, meaning starting businesses is one of the funnest things in the world to me. So I spend all of my time starting businesses and running businesses and just kind of playing the game of a business. And one of the companies that I'm running right now is something called the Powerpitch Company. And what we do is we get people like Cam booked on podcasts so they can get their message out there to the world. And other than that, I'm a full-time writer. I have a blog right now, and everything that I write about is how to grow businesses without spending money to grow it. Because I remember growing up kind of thinking I could never get into business because I didn't have any money to do it. And I thought, oh, you have to have money to make money. Well, it turns out whoever came up with that was just not creative at all. And so basically now I dedicate a lot of my time to helping people grow their businesses without having to pour capital into it or anything like that. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm from Austin, Texas, too. So born and raised, and I love it here.
I love that. It's so great to meet you. And, it is so true that especially when you're growing up, you have all these ideas of what you can and can't do. But when you get to the wonderful age of being an adult and you get to make some of your own decisions and take new paths and get opportunities, you learn that there's so much more out there for you.
Absolutely.
And learn how to embrace it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us about your kind of beginnings and what that looked like for you. Did you grow up in Texas?
Yes. So I grew up in Austin, Texas, born and raised here. I'm still here right now. And when I was 18, I wanted to move out, but I was very rebellious. I was like, I'm just going to get away from everybody that I know. But I became an entrepreneur at that stage. We'll get into that later, but that's what kept me sticking around in Austin, because all of the entrepreneurs I followed lived here as well. So it made me realize, okay, this is a pretty nice spot to be in for the relationships. And so born and raised in Austin, didn't go to college or anything like that. I, in fact, graduated high school with a 1.7 GPA. Like all through school, I was very through school, and this is not like to say this is how everybody should think, but like through my process, I would just think from as young as like 6 years old and having my first homework assignments, thinking one day nobody's going to care about this homework assignment. And I was like, one day nobody's going to care about my grades. One day nobody's going to care about whether or not I turn this paper in. And like, why do it? And so I had this little rebellious attitude at such a young age towards like being told what to do and like being told, like, I don't think it was being told what to do. I think it was being told to do meaningless things, things that I thought were meaningless. And so I always had it in the back of my mind that I wasn't going to be like the typical graduate from high school, go to college and like kind of get a job from that point. So going through school, I had a lot of teachers calling my mom because I was acting up and I was just misbehaving. But one thing about me was I was very, very creative. I one of the things I used to get in trouble for as a young kid was drawing out my notes. So when I would learn something, instead of writing what I would learn, I had this habit of drawing.
Yeah.
And I just drew, but to me, it was my way of understanding what the teacher was saying.
Yeah.
And I used to be told, like, I remember the teacher telling me, like, you can't doodle in class. And that was the first time in my life I was like, what does doodle mean? I was like, I'm sitting here
Yeah.
trying to take some notes, ma'am. And so I had this creative edge, this creative spark. And so through high school, I started to make music. I started to rap, and I started to write music for my friends. So I started to realize I had this like skill of writing, or what to me felt like I could just create stuff. And it felt really good to create stuff. And that's kind of where I felt like led me into entrepreneurship, because right out of high school, I actually went through a heartbreak, like one of those high school heartbreaks too. So it's like where your whole world comes crumbling down, or at least you think your world is. And so I thought it was, I felt like it was, I acted like it was. And after graduating high school, I ended up gaining like 100 pounds, or 98 pounds to be exact, in 4 years. So it was like a pretty big jump in terms of, like, I was just extremely depressed at that point in my life. And so my way of dealing with that emotion was to not deal with it. And that was to just eat. And that led to me gaining a lot of weight. And then at one point, it got so bad where I was just really heavy in, marijuana use, and I lost my job because of it. And so I just started kind of selling marijuana, and like I was kind of living this life of not really going anywhere, but I mean, of not knowing where I'm going, but moving. And what I mean by that is there's this quote by somebody, I forgot who, Sam Parr. He's this entrepreneur I follow. He says, motion is better than direction. And at this point in my life, I was moving a lot. I wasn't doing the most meaningful things, but I was moving forward in some way, even though it wasn't the best way. And what I mean by that was this path of being unemployed led me to, this path of gaining weight, losing my job, kind of losing everything, is actually what led me to finding myself again. It's like funny, sometimes you got to lose yourself to find yourself.
Yeah.
And at one point, a good friend called me out. He didn't just call me out on my lifestyle, like my weight, but he also just called me out on, like, dude, you're not doing anything with yourself. And that was September 19, 2017. Fast forward 9 months, I lost 91 pounds. And after losing that amount of weight, I was just working out with all of my friends, like, cause I lived with my mom at the time. And at the time, we had the neighborhood house. So like all the friends would come to my house. And so when I started working out, I was like, hey, if y'all guys are going to hang out with me, you got to work out with me, And so all of them started working out with me. And then one day a friend just said, hey, why don't you get paid for this? And then I stopped, and I was like, oh my God, people pay people to train them like this. I'm like, that is so true. And then all of a sudden I started Googling how to become a personal trainer. And then fast forward, like maybe 6 months, I had my first personal training business. That business turned out to be a failure, but that was my first step into entrepreneurship. And that's a little bit about like the beginning side of things. I didn't really have like entrepreneur parents and entrepreneurs around me. I just didn't have much. I had this desire to like, because I was always told no, because we couldn't buy certain things. We couldn't, join certain teams, or we couldn't just do certain activities because of the income. And, I remember years not even getting the yearbook because we couldn't pay for it. And so I just had this anger of like, why can't I have what I want? And that desire to just be able to have the freedom to say, I want something, so I'm going to get it. It's kind of what drove me to, because I wasn't one of those entrepreneurs like, I'm gonna get into business because I want to impact the world in the biggest way. It turned into things like that, but it started as, I don't ever want to say no to myself again. Like, I want to be able to have whatever I want. And so that's kind of what started this, like, this passion for business, as opposed to a passion for like fitness and a passion for podcasting. It turned into this passion for business over time. And it's kind of how it led me here now.
Oh my
I know that was
gosh,
a
that's fantastic.
super
I
long
love
answer to your short
it.
question.
No, it's fantastic. I those are the best because you get the most out of it. So I
Mhm.
appreciate that. And along that journey, it just goes to show that number one, it sounds like you had the right kind of support behind you in that people loved you and they were looking out for you. And
Yep.
sometimes it's the hardest things that people say to us that are the most impacting and help us get our lives back on track. And in so many ways, I can, uh, you know, resonate with that and understand how that is. You said a lot of things that I was like, yep, I get that, yep.
Yep.
And so when you decided that this was going to be what your life looked like, what kind of steps did you take to
Yeah.
put these things into working in tangible form?
Yeah. So when it came to starting my first business, I haven't talked about this in a minute, so it's exciting. But when it came to starting that business, it was so I realized I don't think the word entrepreneur hit me yet, but I realized, okay, I'm gonna do this business thing because I just I didn't want to work like for somebody else, and which is bull crap because I do work for my customers now, in some way, right? And it's like I serve people anyway. But at the end of the day, I wanted more freedom, and so when I realized, okay, I'm gonna do this business thing, entrepreneurship, which I didn't even know about at the time, but I thought I'm gonna do this thing. I went and I Googled how do you become a personal trainer. So that day, I Googled how to become a personal trainer. I came across a website. I bought the certification course, and then it took me about like 11 months to get the certification, but about 4 or 5 months in, I realized, oh, in the state of Texas, or really in any state, you don't need a license. There's not a
Mm-hmm.
law that says you need a certification to count somebody's reps and tell them what workouts to do. And so I was like, what the heck am I waiting for? I was like, all right, made a post on Facebook. Hey guys, $20 a session, super cheap. And within like my first 2 days, I got like my first 13 clients, and I was making very little money, like like 1,000 or 1,100 bucks a month. And I was having a lot of fun doing this for a couple of months. I was broke, but I was happy for the first time in a long time because I felt important again.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, people are depending on me in some way, shape, or form. It's like how mothers experience the empty nest syndrome, when their kids leave the house, they want to feel needed. Or it's like
Yeah.
that feeling of feeling important in some way. And so I started feeling that again. And I was like, oh, like I'm valuable. Like this is cool. And so I was just happy. I wasn't like doing too well financially, but I was happy. But still, remember, I didn't have much and I've always wanted stuff. So I was like, all right. I was all right. I got to figure this business thing out. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Like I feel happy, but I gotta feed myself and do more than just feed myself. I want to be able to pay for other people's rent. And
Yeah.
so, I started seeing all these ads on Facebook. This one guy, hey, broke personal trainer, you want to, go online and, start making $10,000 a month in real money. And I was like, that sounds good. I was like, yeah, I was like, I like that. Eventually I clicked on one of the ads. I ended up buying. Trust me, people, these ads are not all of them are scams. I'm sure some are, but it turned out not to be a scam. It was a $10,000 investment to get inside of the mastermind program that was going to teach me how to turn my personal training business into an online business. And I only had $2,000 to my name. And this is what went through my head whenever he told me the $10,000 price. I was like, okay, hold on. Put him on mute. And I was like, I definitely don't have the $10,000. Check my bank account. I was, okay, I got $2,000. I was like, all right. Kind of sat there. My stomach was just like, oh, it was just so tight. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I was like, you know what? I would much rather have whatever the heck is on the other side of this yes than have this silly little $2,000. I was like, I'd much rather have that. And so I said, came back on the line. I was like, hey, look, I only have 2,000. I'll give you all of it right now. And give me some time. I'll come up with the rest. And he goes, okay, can you come up with it in 30 days? I was like, yeah, sure. No idea I was going to come up with it. Hung up the phone, signed up, started calling all my friends and family and asking them for money. And I was like, hey, look, I'm doing this thing. I already said yes. Now I need to pay him back. and I'm gonna pay you back some interest. I'm gonna learn how to do this business thing. I'm gonna make some money. I'll pay you your thing back and a little something, something. And within, a couple of days, I ended up gathering the $8,000 from friends and family.
Wow.
And then I paid for the rest of the program. And the thing that people don't want to happen happened, and that is no sales came through. I learned all the strategies and tactics, and I was like, okay. And I started booking sales calls, and I did 27 sales calls, and all of them were a no. But at that, all of them said no. And I was pitching this is the thing, I was pitching a $1,500 product, online coaching, online fitness coaching, 3 months of coaching, $1,500, one-on-one coaching. That's what I was pitching over the phone. And at the time I was reading Think and Grow Rich. And if you haven't read that book, I'm going to spoil one of the parts of the book for you. So there is a story of an uncle and his nephew. They hear about the gold rush that took place back in the 30s, or this was the 20s at the time. And during that time period, there was a lot of gold around. I mean, like, so people were like, okay, I think America is sitting on a big chunk of gold in certain places. So people were digging for gold. And so just random people going and buying the tools, going and digging for gold. And this one pair digging for gold, they were digging, and nothing. And they were like, oh my God, screw it. And so they got the tools that they bought and they trashed them. But some guy was walking by and saw those tools there. And he was like, oh, snap, those are like good digging tools. He was like, I can go look for some gold, because he was looking for the gold too. He's like, I can look for some gold. He goes, he grabs the tools, and then he starts walking around. Then he notices, oh, look, there's this big hole. It looks like somebody's already dug in. Let me just keep going. So he puts the thing in there, and within 3 feet, he and he strikes gold. And that goes to say that so many times you are literally 3 feet from gold. Success is right around the corner from failing and from failure. And success, people who are successful are really just failures who never stopped, And so I was like, okay, in my mind, I was like 3 feet from gold, 3 feet from gold. And then I'm on 28 sales call. Somebody said yes, and they paid me $1,500 on the phone. And something happens whenever you accomplish something. It's like a newfound sense of confidence that didn't happen. Like, for example, if you shot a 3-pointer, a basketball 3-pointer, and it went in, you would feel like, oh snap, I can shoot more of these things. And so all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can make more of these sales. And I went on to start making my income on, and I went on to start that first month that first month where I made a sale, I did 10,000, then like 20,000, just started jumping. And that first business, don't get too excited, because it did end up a failure. I did end up making $500,000 within that year. So my first year starting a business, it just blew up. And I was like,
paid everybody back.
Right. And I was like, oh, everybody got paid back for sure. But I was like this 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid, like making all this money. And I was like, this is the coolest experience of my life. But I committed a sin in the business world. And so coming like with the context of like, I didn't really have nothing before to like having stuff and like being able to like have options. I was like, I found myself not understanding how to manage my money. And also I found myself only chasing money. So 2 things at once, not understanding how to manage money, because making money is cool, but managing it and multiplying it's a different skill. And at the same exact time, I fell in love with money at all costs. And I was like, okay, we're just going to get as rich as we possibly can. I think because when I saw like $30,000 at once come in a month period, my next thought was like 100,000. You can do it. And so like everything. So I turned into the person who was just making sales, but I wasn't delivering to my clients. Ooh. And so I had one assistant coach who had and 80 something clients that she was responsible for. So imagine having to deal with 80 something clients every week. That's not easy. And so the quality of the coaching dropped, and my reputation started, because people talk. My reputation started to fall and started to spoil. And then before I knew it, I found myself with $3,000 in my bank account, asking my mom if I can go and clear the room back out, and if I can go move back in with my mom. Hardest time of my life. Went back to my parents, and but that's what answers the question, though, to like the process I took to get into entrepreneurship was really just quickly looking into how to do it, doing it on my own, realizing I needed help, finding somebody who's done it, hiring them, doing everything they said, and then continuing to do it even if it didn't pan out in my way, until it panned out in my way. And then again, I started making these really faulty mistakes. And then we can go into how I turned things around at that point. But that's like kind of what I did initially to get into this, like this entrepreneurship space. It wasn't really a complicated journey. And I think I like that you asked me that, because people can see how simple it is.
Yeah.
Because it really is. It's scary. It may be scary, but what's also scary is dying thinking, oh, what if I would have did that? What if I would have did that? And so I just keep that in my mind. I'm like, I'd rather do this scary now than deal with that scary later.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, and let's just go straight into that. Talk about that transition.
Yeah. So basically, after having like lost everything and like back here, back at my mom's place at the time, I was like, okay, I started to, number one, I was like, don't be stupid. What that means is manage your money properly. So I started to learn, like, buy books on how to manage money. But most importantly, take care of the people that you're serving and follow through on everything you say with your customers. And that became like more important. And but what happened was I started another business, this time a hypnotherapy business, because I did learn. So I'm a trained hypnotist. I did learn how to hypnotize people as I was a fitness coach. I realized if I really wanted to help people, I wanted to, because I realized that when I lost my weight, it wasn't a difficult process for me. And I was like, why wasn't it difficult for me, but it is for other people? It's not because something special is about me. It's because whenever I decided to lose weight, I decided to become a healthy person that day. And because I saw myself and I was so convinced that I was this healthy individual, it was easy for me to do the things, like eat the right food and just work out. It wasn't difficult. In other words, I lost a person who gained the weight before I lost the weight. And so I thought, if I can help people change the person that they are, in other words, change their brains, I'm going to be like, I can help people do whatever. And so I was like, okay, let me build this business, but I'm going to build this business exactly how I built my fitness business. But of course, I'm going to do right by my customers, my clients, but I'm going to use all the social media strategies that I learned to grow it.
Yeah.
I tried that, but it didn't work. For 6 months, I did not get a client. And so I was just like, it was the scariest time of my life. Thankfully, I didn't have to pay rent. All right. I didn't have, it got to a point where I was having my mom take care of my car note for a little bit. Like, it was that bad. And then, but again, successful people are failures who just don't give up. So I was like, Adrian, you may seem like a failure right now, but just keep freaking going. Something's going to pan out. So I just kept going. And then one day I did manage to get a client. She loved it so much that she said, Adrian, can you come and do a talk for my students? Sure, I can come do that. So I come on a Zoom call like this, group call. There's like 9 of them there. I do the whole talk. I do a little group hypnosis for them. They all ate it up. They loved it. And after the talk, 2 of them reached out to me asking the same thing. How can I work with you? And then I was like, well, here, fill out this application and let's do this thing. So we got on the phone call and I closed both of them at $5,000 each. And then the next day, another person hit me up. And these people, by the way, they were on the call that the group call I did. There were those people who I just delivered the talk to. And then the next day I get a message from someone that says, hey, I wasn't on the group call live, but I just watched the replay. And do you have any room for clients? Because I think you can help me with something. And I'm sitting here like, okay, what's going on? All 3 of them paid me $5,000 And they all pay in full. So $15,000 I collected in 2 days, money that I desperately needed. And so here I was with $15,000, but there's an undervalued skill, I believe, that a lot of people don't talk about, and that is the power of reflecting. And so what I did was I reflected on what just happened. I was like, okay, something just worked. If I can pull this apart and figure out what just worked, I can double down on this thing, and like I can figure out how to turn this thing around. And so as I started to look at it, I noticed a couple of things. Number one, the reason why they wanted to work with me is because they got a chance to actually experience my value. Number two, the reason why they were so quick to work with me and they didn't bat an eye at my price, which, by the way, your typical hypnotherapist for 3 sessions, you're looking at about five. And this is the high end. You're looking at about $300 to $500. That's high end. I was charging $5,000 for 3 sessions. That's 3 hours for $5,000 of my time. And so I'm charging what I think it's 100x the regular, and so they weren't batting an eye at my price. Why were they paying me this much when they could have got on Google and could have spent $100 for somebody else? And I realized it's because of the positioning I took in their mind, because they respected their coach. Their coach endorsed me. They automatically respected me. It's like your doctor saying, hey, you have a heart problem. Here is an appointment to go see a heart doctor. You're not going to go price shop. You're not going to go review this doctor and try to look into everything you can about his history. No, you're going to be like, my doctor told me to go here. I'm going to shut up and give them my credit card, and so I can get the treatment that I need. In the same exact way, I got endorsed by somebody that they respected. And this is why, and I was like positioned as an expert. So when you're positioned as an expert, you're positioned as a higher authority in somebody's mind. So subconsciously, they think you're expensive. And so they don't bat an eye at the expensive price. That's when I realized, that's when I had my epiphany moment. And this was the epiphany that changed everything for me. And that was, the best way to market your business is to, instead of marketing directly to your direct customer, market to the people and the organizations that have your customer, and then be endorsed by them. And you'll never have to worry about another client again. And so I thought, all right, how can I get in front of more audiences? Because if I can get in front of these audiences, I can start pulling in heaps of clients. And I started making a list of all these different masterminds. And that's when it hit me. Why not get on podcast? Because podcasts are like masterminds. They have a host, a respected leader, and then they have an audience, an engaged following, and engaged listeners. And if I can get positioned on podcasts as a guest expert, I can have the same effect. And so I pitched 40 shows, got 0 responses, and I was like, all right, reflect, stop and reflect. Let's look at why my pitch isn't working, and let's figure out why it's not working. And so I ended up revamping my pitch into the pitch that you received on Cam's behalf. And with that new pitching style, which, by the way, for the audience, it was a video. As Sarah could say, it wasn't a copy and paste video that I sent to all these people. I said her name. I said the name of the show. I even talked about an episode that I liked. And so these videos I started to send, and I was like, okay, instead of sending 40, let me send 10 and see what happens. I sent 10, 8 of them said yes. And I was like, whoa. I was like, I think I figured something out. So I pitched 121 shows in 2021, 2022. I got booked on 52 of them. And the best stat of all is I was able to generate over $220,000 and save my hypnotherapy business and put myself in a position now where now I teach people how to get booked on podcasts, and this business has taken off very quickly. And it's kind of like that story of having it all, losing it all, and then working your way back up, right? And now I've worked my way back up to a better position, and now I have the lessons that I've had, and I'm able to, and thankfully I'm 20, I think I'm 26, 25. I think I'm
I love
26.
that.
Okay. I think I'm one of those ages. But anyway, I'm at the age where you kind of forget. But I was able to make these mistakes as a young kid in my mind. I kind of still feel like a kid, and
You
I
are.
I tell and I tell, a lot of my younger friends and some friends who are like 20, 21, and I'm just like, and my cousins, I'm like, right now, guys, y'all guys can screw up your whole life. Like, go screw up your whole life. Like, don't make the kind of decisions where you end up in prison, you
Yeah.
end up with all kind of, I'm like,
Yeah.
don't do stuff like that, but like, go take a risk. Like, go
Yeah.
start a business, go pull out a $10,000 loan. Like I genuinely believe those kind of moves as a very young, as like a 20 something year old, is not that outlandish,
Mhm.
as opposed to playing it safe, And so because I forgot, my mentor Taylor Welch says short-term safety equals long-term danger, and short-term
Mhm.
danger equals long-term safety. And when I heard that, it was just like kind of validation for everything that I did. But that's kind of that's really just the journey that happened. And now I just have a blog and a newsletter where I share all the lessons that I've learned through that experience. And then I'm helping other people market their businesses. And I'm like, hey guys, this is some stuff that I'm learning about how to market and how to sell. And now I just share everything freely because I'm basically being who I wanted when I jumped into entrepreneurship. I
Yeah.
wished I found somebody who gave away the kind of knowledge that people charge $10,000-$20,000 for.
Yeah.
Because this, I mean, you can do this stuff, and
Mhm.
so, but so many people are like, here's a, um, you know, uh, here's an email. I mean, give me your email for this and do the, pay me for this. And I get it. I do all of that stuff too. Like if you go to my email, if you go to my website, there's going to be pop-ups. There's going to be an email opt-in. But my blog is like a passion of mine because that's where it's like, you don't even need to subscribe to a single thing of mine. You
Yeah.
can just go to my website and read my blog articles. And I've had people say, Adrian, I've made six figures off of this one article.
Wow.
Adrian, I was able to turn my business around and, save my mother's house because of this
Mhm.
article, because to me, it's like, that is like the legacy and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm young as heck. I got a long way to go. And so I'm
Mhm.
excited to see what happens.
Lots to go, lots to achieve in the future, that's for
Yes.
sure. And it's been so nice getting to know you. And yeah, you're right. That video turned like made a huge difference. It
It
showed
got me
me
booked on
it
here.
got you
And that's the
booked.
thing.
And
That's
you
the
weren't
thing.
even asking.
By the way, I pitched on somebody else's. You're probably, I think, the third or fourth person who's booked me from Cam's pitch. Like
Oh
I,
my
so like I say, and they're like,
gosh.
hey, I don't know you, but like, and like
Yeah.
we talk,
You
and
were
so
so authentic. It was so authentic and it was so you weren't you could tell you weren't trying to pitch or sell anything. You were providing service for someone else to take their space. And
exactly.
that's a beautiful thing. And that's kind of like how I feel as a host, that I want to provide this place for people to come and show themselves and let people get the spotlight on them and see that they have so much value to share with the world, and there's so much to learn through other people's experiences. So
Absolutely. Yep.
before we go, tell us where we can go to get all of this information. Tell us
Yeah,
maybe your
sure. So
website.
for sure. So the number one place would just be to go to adrianmoreno.co. So it's first, last name.co. You can sign up to my newsletter there. There's a bunch of articles you can read there. It's a very simple site. It's either my newsletter or my articles and a little about me section. But if you, and all my socials are on there. So if you want to follow
Great.
me, you can go through there. But just go to that website. That'd be the best place to go. And yeah, that's about it.
Oh, thank you so much for your time today. It's
Absolutely.
really great that we got to have this conversation because, like
Yes.
you said, it may not have happened otherwise if you hadn't
Yeah.
sent that great
Yeah,
video.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate you very much.
Wonderful.
And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch.
Okay.